Welcome to everybody to the Jefferson Street Sound Museum. And neither one of these gentlemen needs an introduction. To my right is Mr. Lorenzo Washington, the founder of Jefferson Street Sound Museum. And then to my left, we have attorney Edward Kendell. And Edward Kendell wrote the book, A Walk Down Jefferson Street. So we're going to discuss that. Mr. Washington is going to discuss that with him today, and along with some other stories that probably weren't in the book. Would that be all right?
That'd be okay.
All right. So again, welcome to everybody to the Legacy Series. All right, Mr. Washington.
Well, thank you, Ed, for coming in and sitting with us and interviewing with us. We're trying to capture some of the history that took place here on Jefferson Street, and I know I've read your book, Walk Down Jefferson Street. We also suggest folk to buy the book here at the Jefferson Street Sound Museum. So, and we're neighbors. And you, when I first came to Jefferson Street, you came in and invited me to be a part of a couple of meetings that has taken place. But we have our photographer here, and we want to film this interview. And my first question, if you could tell us a little bit about your family life here on Jefferson Street, and are you a native of Nashville?
Yes, to both of those, but I grew up on Jefferson Street. I was born in 1945, February the 5th, in a house in the front room of a home here on Jefferson Street. I had an older brother and an older sister. We were all 2 years apart. My father was a bricklayer. My mother was a homemaker and also a part-time teacher, but she did substitute teaching. Both of them had degrees from Tennessee State. My mother had a degree in history, and my father had a degree in agriculture. As I said, I grew up on Jefferson Street. I attended Fisk University for a year and a half, and then I transferred to Tennessee State University. Well, at that time, it was called A&I. When I graduated, it was Tennessee State. And I graduated Tennessee State in 1968 with a degree in mathematics. I went to work for a company called Burroughs Corporation. I mean, not Burroughs, IBM. I think everybody's heard of IBM. Mm-hmm. And I worked for them about 3 years in New Jersey, Washington, D.C. area. Came back to Nashville, actually, to teach school. Didn't like corporate America, still don't like corporate America. So I came back here to teach school, but I found out that even though I had a degree in mathematics, I didn't have the education courses to teach in the public school system. However, I did teach for a while at TSU as an adjunct professor. I taught mathematics. But in the meantime, I went to law school and I got a law degree and did a lot of other things in between. I was a contractor because my father was in the construction business, so I learned a little bit about construction. So I was a contractor for a while. But after I got my law degree, of course, I practiced law now for about 46 years, and primarily in the area of criminal law, even though I've done a little bit of all of it. I think the only parts of law that I haven't done anything in is patent law and immigration law and maybe admiralty law. But bankruptcy, all the other things, civil law, domestic divorce, which I stopped a few years ago. That's a very dangerous area to practice divorce court. But I mean, that's a joke. But it's really the truth. So that's kind of the history of my background. As I said, I grew up. We didn't have a lot of money. As you can imagine, my father was a bricklayer, and sometime in the wintertime we didn't have any money. So, but we made it. My mother always made sure we had food and that the lights were on and we had some heat. And so I'm very thankful for that. They were thankful for my family, the whole upbringing that I had on Jefferson Street. Did that answer your question on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Might have been a little long answer, but.
No, that, all answers is a good answer.
All right.
You just mentioned some of the areas of law that you practice. Now, my question is, who are some of the attorneys that possibly influenced you coming up?
Oh, well, there were several. Of course, Z. Alexander Luby was one, Senator Avon Williams, and a good friend of mine who also encouraged me to go into the field of law was Carlton Petway. And he was closer to my age than the others. But that was a lot of the encouragement. And also, other than being encouraged by other lawyers, you know, I kind of felt like I wanted to do something that was going to benefit people. That's why I went into criminal law, because I saw a lot of injustices going on with the system, which still, as we can see every day on the TV, a lot of injustices going on. And what I mean by that is, and I don't want to get too political, but if you think about it, a man gets arrested and charged, they attempted to charge him with a felony for throwing a Subway sandwich at a police officer, hitting him in the chest, which he had on all this armor, and definitely wasn't trying to hurt him. He couldn't hurt him with a foot-long Subway sandwiches. And he gets tried. Of course, he gets acquitted, fortunately, and I'm glad. And then you have police officers, people who beat up police officers at the Capitol who got pardoned. And, you know, like I said, I'm not going to get any more political than that. All right? But I have to tell the truth.
Yes.
You go ahead.
Now, what did Jefferson Street mean to you, especially after the riots and different negative things happening over here on Jefferson Street?
Well, after the riots, of course, the riots happened in I think around when Martin Luther King and death around 1968 or whatever. I actually was in college, just finishing college at the time. I was in I call it a beer joint. It was right across the street from Fisk University. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, on the corner.
The University Inn, I think the
Yeah.
name it was. And Stokely Carmichael was speaking on the corner here at 18th and Jefferson. And it had maybe 20 or 25 people standing around, you know, listening to him. Nothing going on, no riots, nobody out of order. All of a sudden, half of the police department in Nashville showed up with armor gear on, you know, like they were coming as the military or whatever. And they charged at the group. And of course, they say it was a riot after that. But my brother was a part of that crowd out there, and I remember he got home, he had bruises on all his arms and things where they'd hit him with the batons and all. So, but Jefferson Street, to me, even before that, Lorenzo, it was just almost like a miraculous place. You know, it was, you had cohesiveness of the people who lived there. I call it sharing and caring kind of community. You know, nobody went hungry. We didn't have.
Right.
I don't think we had much government assistance at that time, like food stamps or anything of that nature. And but you know, if anybody needed food, the neighbors would get it.
Yeah.
It just was a very cohesive community, very vibrant. We had practically every store or business on Jefferson Street that you can imagine. We had upholstery shops. We had a 5 and 10 store, which was comparable kind of to what we call a Family Dollar now. We had, of course, several restaurants, drugstores, shoe shops, barber shops, beauty shops, theater. It just, everything was there. And we had professional offices like accountants, who were down near 26 in Jefferson. We had attorneys who had offices on Jefferson Street. And we had medical doctors. There were at least 3 medical doctors who had offices on Jefferson Street. So it was kind of like a town within a town.
Yeah.
The only thing we had to go downtown for maybe was clothes and furniture, stuff like that, larger items. And of course, we went downtown to get some clothes. You couldn't try them on. If you tried them on, you got to buy them.
Yeah.
But we had a few stores actually in North Nashville. There was a store right up here across the street called Lord and Ladies, which sold clothes. A lot of people don't remember that. They were kind of a high dollar store in the community. And we had some other stores that sold smaller items like T-shirts and underclothes and things of that nature. But it just was an exciting community. I still think about it as being probably the most interesting part of my life, that, you know, growing up on Jefferson. And the character.
Yeah.
You know, money wasn't the primary goal of people who back then. Education was.
Yes.
You know, if you lived on Jefferson Street, and when I say Jefferson Street, I'm talking about the corridor, the entire community, Meharry, you know, Albion, all these streets adjacent. You know, education was mandatory. You know, that was something you expected to get. You know, not necessarily a college degree, but you certainly were expected to finish high school. My class, when I finished Pearl High School in 1963, we had 275, I believe, students, and over 75% of them went on to higher education or in the military. And that's remarkable, because nowadays we're having a hard time getting 75% to finish high school in some of our cities, and even here in Nashville. But Jefferson Street was, you know, my wife, I think in the book, she wrote that part. She said, "Your beloved Jefferson Street," you know, because I talked about Jefferson Street all the time.
And I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The makeup of the families that lived on Jefferson Street was comprised of different backgrounds.
Right.
So you had doctors, garbage men, firemen, everybody lived next to each other.
Yeah.
There wasn't a segregation
That's right.
of careers.
Yeah, that was one of the strengths, I think, real strengths of Jefferson Street. It was very diverse, economically and socially. It wasn't racially. We had maybe, I'd say, less than 1% of Caucasians who lived on Jefferson Street are really in the area. But we had doctors, lawyers, contractors, businessmen, janitors, teachers, you know, just a whole gamut of professions along Jefferson Street. And everybody kind of looked at each other on an equal basis. I mean, people didn't look down on you because you were this or that and the other. And I think the reason for that is the overriding discrimination against the entire community by the majority of the community made everybody feel they were in the same pot, you know, and they were.
Yeah.
I talk about in my book about the education. When I went through Fort Greene, Washington Junior High, and Pearl High School, the teachers that we had, they were committed, they were dedicated to us, to the children. And I think the reason for that, you know, same thing. They lived in the community, and they understood discrimination. They understood all the things that were put up against us, and so they were intent on making us the best that we could become. And I had some excellent teachers. I think they were better than any other teachers probably in Nashville. Because if you think about it, we could cherry pick. You know, we could get the best of the best. Whereas now, in a lot of school systems, they just get somebody to fill that job. And that person may not care that much about the community, especially if they don't live in it. Is there to get a check. You know, get that check and go home. I'm not saying all teachers that way that come in, because some of them are really still dedicated. But that was a real strength in the in this community.
And you had a lot of families,
Yeah.
family members in the community.
Right.
And that helped a lot because
Oh, yeah.
the teachers could go to the families
True.
at that time.
You know, I think about that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I respect dearly single parent kind of situation, but we had very little of that. You know, when I was growing up, there was always a man in the house. You know, some of them weren't maybe necessarily that productive, but most of them were. And we like Lorenzo was saying, we had families that everybody contributed. You know, I know when I recall, like I was saying earlier, in the wintertime, my father couldn't work. You know, it might be snow on the ground or too cold. And they did have a unemployment office down on 4th and Jefferson in that area. It was called the Colored Unemployment Office. You didn't go to the same one that the whites went to. And you went there to get a check, you know, to kind of bide you over. And I remember we went down and we didn't have a car. So we borrowed my uncle's car. He had an old Ford, didn't have any heat in it. And we went down and we sat for about 3 or 4 hours. I like froze there. I was just a little kid, you know, but it seemed like all day. And my father came out with a little check, $17 and something, you know. That was what he got for unemployment benefits then. But, you know, like I said, people looked out after each other. There was a lady who lived down the street on the corner of 26th, and she was the grandmother of 4 little children, and they didn't have anything. I mean, you know, I don't even know if she drew any kind of money, and she would come up the alley behind our house a lot of times. We had an old garage that was falling down. You know, it was a wooden garage, but it was falling down, and she would get wood off of it just to take home to cook with or to heat her home. And I know me and my brother used to go out there sometime and pull the wood off and lay it over there where she could get it and not have to wrestle with it. But also food. My mama loved to cook anyway. One time I thought she was running a community kitchen. A number of people would come by, you know, you need something to eat, you want something to eat. It was almost like she was forcing them to eat, you know. And but it was just that kind of community. Like I said, we lived next door to a contractor, Mr. Stewart. I have his family in the book. He was quite a successful businessman, and you know, he was a person who shared as well. But a lot of people, the backbone of Jefferson Street, they really don't know. And you know, the overpass down there that has all the pictures in it, it doesn't have, in my opinion, a lot of the real people. Like there was a man named Jackson Brown. He owned 4 drugstores on Jefferson Street at a given time. And he owned the Brown's Hotel, and he owned the Club Baron. You don't see anything about him on the Heritage Bridge, you know, which is okay. I mean, I guess the people who did that did not know this man. But he was kind of a pillar of the community. He had others, several others. The Odies, you know, they had the drugstore here across up the street. You had, I'm trying to think of his name, the family. They had the printing company, you know what I'm talking about? Right down here. Hemphill. Yeah, Hemphill Press. I mean, they did all the printing and all for most of everything that was going on in the black community at that time. So you got a lot of people who lived on Jefferson Street who made major contributions to the community that we never really hear about.
And even this building here, where we're sitting now, used to be an ice cream parlor.
Mm-hmm.
Right here.
Right.
It was an ice cream parlor, a beauty shop.
Right.
Part of
That was an old grocery store here too.
grocery store. Yeah.
Beauty salon.
Right.
So this old building here has a little bit of historical.
It does. Yeah. And right across the street there was a tailoring shop where they made suits and dresses and all. People right here where the bank is.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. Now, what do you see the future of Jefferson Street being?
Well, I just have hopes.
Yeah.
What I'm wishing it could be, I don't think it would. I think it's going to be difficult. I want to see some of the music venues here on Jefferson Street. Not necessarily all dealing with African American performers and all, but a variety of entertainment on Jefferson Street, but inclusive, certainly inclusive of the African American community.
Yeah.
I also don't want, I kind of talk about it, what I don't want to see. I don't know how familiar you all are with 12th South.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to see Jefferson Street becoming 12th South, because then we lose any kind of ownership or control that we still have. Because a lot of people don't realize it. A good portion of Jefferson Street is still owned by African Americans.
Correct.
You know, the property. Some people think it's all been bought up and that kind of thing, but it hasn't. But I would like to see us develop some of this, you know, where we have a vested interest in it and some generational wealth, you know. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm hoping it does. I think a good thing is a lot of people are holding on to their property. You know, they're not just giving it away or selling it for little or nothing. And even, you know, some of these prices that they're offering people on Jefferson Street, they have to realize that if they move to another part of town or wherever they can move to, it's going to cost them just as much. So they haven't really gained anything by you know, releasing that property. But that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see it. You know, we're not going to stop gentrification.
Right.
You know,
right.
And gentrification is really not a racial thing. It de facto it turns out to be, but it's really an economic kind of thing. Like the homes that they're building behind where I live now on Scoville Street, they're going to be over 140 new homes down there, and a lot of them have already been built, several of them. And the ones they're building now, very expensive homes. And so, you know, I'm expecting that you're going to have a lot of people of the Caucasian persuasion who are going to be buying those houses, because I don't know that we have as a general rule, we don't have the finance to buy some of those kind of houses. But I think we have now Church of God, which is up on Hyman Street, you know, the big church
on the
corner there. I'm working for them now as an attorney, and they have plans to do a lot of building, and they're going to be building a lot of affordable things. On the other end of Scoville Street, for example, where, see, they own just about all that property from 26th to 28th, just about all of it. Plus they have property on Hyman Street down, a lot of property down there as well.
Right.
So they have plans to do a lot of building, and they're going to be building. They're going to really build what I think would be affordable housing, because like Karen and I were talking earlier, what is affordable housing? You know,
exactly.
I've got a question. What about a hotel or a grocery store?
Yeah.
On Jefferson Street. In your position, Ed, is there any way that you can stir the pot and get an interest as far as getting a hotel and a grocery store on Jefferson?
I've tried. Years ago, when Harold Love Sr. was the state representative, and of course at one time he was also a councilman, and he and I talked about it in detail. This was right before the interstate came through, and what really made me focus on it, my mother and father, well, like I say, we lived at 2510, which is right between the egress and ingress of getting on and getting off of Jefferson Street from the interstate. And about 1957, 58, a group of people came to our home there on Jefferson Street, and they said, we're going to try to build a big film home. It's going to be black owned or black operated or whatever. And they wanted to give everybody an optional contract in that block. So they gave everybody an optional contract to buy their property for $25,000, which at that time was a lot of money. You know, those houses were appraised at like 7, 8, 10,000. And so they gave everybody a dollar option contract from almost from where the overpass is now all the way down to 26. And this was supposed to be for a funeral home. But they came back about 6 months later and they had Holiday Inn caps on. I mean, shirts and Holiday. They said, we really would Holiday Inn. And we want to look at building a hotel here. Well, it made sense because it would be the first hotel other than that that you get to coming from the west, that you get to coming into Nashville.
Right.
And of course you got TSU, Meharry, and Fisk, which would also be a population that they could, draw upon. And so I talked to Harold Love about it. I said, look, why don't we had some ideas. I said, if we could get enough property, and at that time I was thinking about a little further down Jefferson Street on the left-hand side, if we could get that property and let the community own the hotel. In other words, Ed Kendell can buy 100 shares, Karen can buy 2,000 or whatever, but let the community own that, and also give Tennessee State, Meharry, and Fisk a small percentage, like 1% or 2% or 1.5%, because what you're doing there is all of the activities that go on in Tennessee State. Where are they going to send people? I mean, people who call in, they say, well, can you get me a hotel? Yeah, right here. So I think you would automatically have some strategies where you could keep that hotel full. Plus, we have all these organizations, Kappas, AKAs, all these different groups who have events, and they could have them there. You'd have a banquet room big enough where you could have that. We could even have your celebration.
Yeah, all right.
But I'm just saying that was the idea that we had. I still think it's a viable kind of thing. It's just getting people together. One problem I have with a lot of it, we got to get out of this distrusting each other. Some kind of way, and get people together to look at it. And I don't think I'm the person to be the leader in it. I got too old, but anyway, I appreciate the question, and I think that's an excellent idea. I think we need to look at that very seriously, because I think it would go here on Jefferson Street extremely well. I think it would. I like the community ownership thing, but we might not be able to put that together. Hopefully,
and not everybody, at least some individuals from the community would be.
Yeah. You wouldn't have everybody, right? You might have somebody that just wants to buy 2 shares. Say the shares cost $50 a piece or whatever.
Right.
I own 2% just to say I own part of it. So I think you wouldn't raise all the money necessary to build it and that kind of thing, but you would have enough seed money where you would be able to maybe borrow or acquire the funds. But that's something I think needs to be looked into, and I hope somebody who's listening to this who has that kind of capacity would take that idea and do something with it.
What about a grocery store?
Yeah, now, Church of God, like I was telling you earlier, they closed the Family Dollar on Jefferson Street. Now, I don't know what's going on with that. I understand there's somebody negotiating with them, but they have interest in possibly doing a grocery store there, where you have fresh vegetables and this kind of thing. Because right now, we got to drive, where I live, I got to drive either way out on Clarksville Highway, even a Charlotte or somewhere, just to get some turnip greens.
Tomatoes.
But, that's a bad one called tomatoes. Well, really, to be honest with you, I drink 2% milk. And these little markets around there don't sell 2% milk. No, they have whole milk, and that's it. But anyway, I think that would be a spot that people need to look at. I don't know what Family Dollar is going to do with that building, but that's a large building, and it wouldn't be a Kroger's or anything like that. But if you compare it to stores like Hunter's out in Bordeaux, and it could be something of that nature, and I think it would do well.
With a nice community store. Considering that Kingdom used to be a grocery store.
Right. Kingdom Cafe, when I was growing up, it was Logan's grocery store. and then they had National Grocery Store there, and it was full service. I mean, what I remember about it was the fruit. They had grapes and stuff like this, and we as kids, we'd go in there and test them out a little bit. We weren't stealing, but we were just,
Just
sampling
testing
them for the store, for the community.
See if they're sweet
See
or
if they're
not.
sweet or not, yeah. But they had, it was a full service store. They had meat, vegetables, all kind of canned food. They're similar to, say, a Hunter's, a store of that nature.
Now, going back to, we were discussing about the hotels and all. Now, there was somebody who was supposed to be looking into building a hotel, a small hotel there on Jefferson, across from the Elks.
Yeah, that's the area I was speaking of,
Yeah.
that I had suggested, but I don't know if anybody's looking into it now. I heard somebody was, but I don't know who that is.
Right.
Now, you had, of course, back in, I don't know if you remember, you had the Browns Hotel on Jefferson Street, which was down right
On
across
down,
from where Cassie Gardner's funeral home was.
Right. It's 16.
Yeah, 16's right in there. And you had the El Dorado, which was out here off of Buchanan. Because back during the 50s and 60s, really, the entertainers who came here, 40s and 50s and part of the 60s, the black entertainers who came here, most of them stayed at Brown's Hotel or
Yeah.
El Dorado. I remember seeing B.B. King's big bus down there many times. He would have it was painted on the side, B.B. King. I mean, it looked like somebody took a brush and paint. That's what he was first started and all. But they would stay at the Browns Hotel.
And Ray Charles.
Ray Charles.
He stayed over here on Jefferson.
He did. There used to be a little hotel right here where this beauty shop, nail shop is right now. Right down the street here. There's a nail shop on this side.
On
this side.
On this side.
The big white building. It was white. I don't know the color now. But it's a nail shop and hair shop or whatever.
I know it's one right up the street here. Used to be a hotel.
Okay, it's up the street. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's up the street, yeah.
Up street, yeah.
It's where D. Nails is now.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a Delmar hotel. Jimi Hendrix stayed in there. Muhammad Ali stayed up there a couple
Little
times.
Richard.
Little Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite a few of them. And they were little bitty small rooms. They had a bed and a dresser and that kind of thing.
And they said you could barely walk between the bed and
That's
the wall.
right. That's right. They were like maybe 4 by 8 or like a prison cell or something like that.
Yeah.
But people stayed there, but they didn't have any choice. Now, on occasion, some of them would stay even with people in the community. There was a lady who lived a couple of doors down from me. She was a socialite, and she used to have big dinners, and she'd get me and my brother to put on little white coats, and we'd serve the people and this kind of thing. But I got to meet some interesting people there.
Now, this house used to be a boarding house up front.
Right.
You remember, and Hank Crawford.
Oh, did it?
Hank Crawford lived upstairs.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Oh, Watt told me that, about that. Watt had came in here a few times
Right.
when Hank was in here.
Okay.
But I have also heard that Ray Charles has actually been in this house because he picked up Hank Crawford
Okay.
and took Hank Crawford out of Nashville.
That must have been before I saw him driving down Jefferson Street.
I do tell that story too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's just an exciting, even now, I'm excited about Jefferson Street. I told my daughter, I was teasing her really, but I said, if I die, this guy got this red bus that comes through here sometime. What's his name? Solar City.
That's not right today.
I told, Fred, yeah. Fred Whitley. I told my daughter, I said, I want you to get that bus, and I want you to come down Jefferson Street. I don't want my body to be in the bus, but y'all, the family, can ride in the bus, and I want Mary Jane's song playing on top. Was that Jefferson Street?
Well, you know I brought Mary.
She said, "Now you asked for that, I might do it." I said,
Well, you know I brought Mary and James down to Jefferson Street
Right.
with the horse and carriage.
"Oh, did you?"
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
all the way down. Traffic backed up for
Well, that-
miles.
Yeah, I think I did hear about that.
And brought her
Yeah.
all the way down
Yeah.
to First Street Church.
Okay.
Sure did. I've got another question here. Now, how can the community ensure that Jefferson Street and its impact it is not erased?
That's a hard question, but I think staying aware of what's being planned, because
Yeah.
a lot of times we don't know what's going on until after it happens. You know, is at the stage where we can't stop it if we want to stop it.
Right.
So just staying aware of what's being passed by the Metro Council and what the city's plans are, just keeping abreast of that. And then when you find out something that might be detrimental to the city, then you can take action. At least, you know, you participate by going before the council members and expressing your concerns. And I've seen that happen. You know, I was a member of the council as well.
Right.
But I've seen it happen, and I've been on the other side of that. I mean, I was on the council, but I've been on the side of stopping some things from happening.
Yeah.
Where they're building those houses on Hyman Street, there have been several proposals that came up before that. One was to put a medical dispensary, in other words, where they dump medical stuff, and we fought that and stopped that. But just keeping abreast of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the first thing, you know. And that's something I don't think we do enough of. Of course, our council members and others are supposed to keep us abreast, but that's hard too.
I remember back in the day when you used to be on TV a lot when you were a councilman.
Now, school board.
Yeah, and you were always fighting for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
That was one thing that I admired about you and your tenure through the council field. But do you think the history about historic Jefferson Street should be taught in the metro schools?
I wish it would be. You know, when I first wrote the book, there was a teacher at Pearl Cone who got in touch with me, and she wanted, I think it was a he wanted 70 copies. And I sold him 70 copies at a discounted rate. But I don't know whether with all of this stuff going on now about DEI, because you have to remember my book has some parts of it that might be a little controversial. And this stuff about DEI and excluding certain books from schools and all this, I don't know, that might not work in DEI. but I think the whole concept of teaching the history of Jefferson Street, what happened before, I think that's very important for the future. And I don't know if that'll happen or not, but
Right.
Now I was planning to go before the new Board of Education. You know, I was on the board almost 28 years,
Yeah.
and I think that's the longest anybody in Davidson County or old
Right.
had stayed on the board. And my intention was to go in there and stay a year and a half. I was filling out a term by Ms. Gupton, the lady's name was Gupton. And of course the civil rights, desegregation and all that was going on at the time, so that kept me there, you know.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
you know, I like to fight. And,
Well, you were fighting for the kids.
Yeah.
That was
well, let me
big
tell you a
thing.
little story that about, since you're on that subject. That was back when they were trying to make Martin Luther King a holiday, an out-of-school holiday. You know, Metro had what they call an in-school holiday, and that's where you'd have a little celebration in the morning and that was it, And the administration at that time, I can't remember which one it was supporting that concept, that we would just have a celebration, because a lot of people didn't want to see Martin Luther King Day as a real holiday, where teachers are out, students are out.
Yeah.
And most of the people who didn't want to see that didn't want to recognize Martin Luther King as a leader, to be honest with you. And I'll let you all guess who those people are. But what happened was, I sat next to a gentleman by the name of Tom Hightower. Tom Hightower was a very conservative, older white man. And this was right during the time they had the first Gulf War. And, Metro schools did not celebrate at that time, not Memorial Day, Veterans Day.
Yeah.
We didn't celebrate that as an out-of-school holiday. So Tom said, "Here, I think we ought to make Veterans Day a holiday for out of school, because that's important, the war just going on and everything." I said, "I agree with you, Tom." So I said, "You make the motion, I'll second it." So he made the motion. I said, "Well, I want to amend that motion to also add Martin Luther King as a holiday." And boy, I'll tell you, it passed, but it just barely passed. And they weren't expecting that. But I found that was the way you had to do things a lot of times with people, because you weren't going to ever convince them just to do it. But I enjoyed those years on the Board of Education. I wasn't so much enjoyment being on the council. And that's a big difference. Well, on the board, you feel like you're really affecting children's lives and this kind of thing directly. You got 40 council members. We sit there and we say move for approval, this kind of thing. And I wasn't all that happy with that. But it's needed, and I respect people and admire people who are willing to do it, because any public service that you're willing to do is valuable.
Right. Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, Ed. Why do you think it's important for the history of historic Jefferson Street to be taught in school?
Well, I think for several reasons, but I think one of the most important reasons is if young people really understand what happened during that era, especially during the era of Jim Crow laws, etc. Because I tell people now, and these are older people. I was telling my son-in-law the other day, he's 50, no, he's 60. And I was telling him about some of the things that we experienced, and he said, "Really? Y'all went through that?" And so they really can't appreciate the kinds of things that we had to deal with. And I think once they learn that and learn to appreciate that, that will help them better serve the community and be stronger, to be honest with you. Because, some of them don't even believe. You tell them, well, we couldn't drink out the same water fountain, or we couldn't go in the same restaurant. Oh, you got to be kidding. What'd you do if you had to go to the restroom? I said, well, I don't remember.
So I don't remember.
I don't remember. But but that's the most important, I think. And of course, there are probably a lot of other, just to know the history, because knowing the history hopefully means you won't repeat the past if it's a bad past. But that's not true nowadays. We know the history of Jim Crow and all, but there seems to be an effort to bring that back, by some people.
Right.
By some of the laws, well, I won't say laws, but some of the actions that are being taken.
Well, it's like certain politicians that were elected didn't do a good job. People, short-term memory, re-elected.
Right. But I thought about that the other day. I never thought, when I was sitting on this school board, that you would ever hear the words DEI being negative.
Ever.
If you think about those words, diversity, what's wrong with that? Equity. I think everybody believes in equity, I guess. Inclusion.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with any of that. Matter of fact, in my mind, those are all positive things.
All good things.
But
Yes.
but they've made it like it's a poison. It's like a dirty word to use. I mean, not dirty word, phrase to use diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And what's so ironic about that, the very ones that are
Promoting.
promoting it and positioning it to be negative are the ones that are receiving positive benefits.
Exactly. I mean, we have a Supreme Court justice who benefited from,
Yes.
you know, so he got his job with the EEOC, you know, but, you know, I don't think I need to call the name of the Supreme Court justice. But that I think is super important, but it's just so hard to get young people to want to learn about it. I mean, someone would tell you, well, it ain't gonna make no difference, you know. That's just like this thing about voting. You know, you try to explain to them, if you don't vote, then that's giving the other party a vote. But if you vote, that cancels the other person. And then they'll tell you, well, it don't make no difference whether it's Democrat or Republican or whoever it is, you know. They ain't gonna do nothing for me. But now, you know, when they're cutting over these SNAP programs, you know, yeah, they doing something to you, all right? So you know, you better wake up.
Yeah, they're seeing it a little different now.
Oh yeah, they say when it starts coming home. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And a lot of stuff now is coming home. You know, price of food is high. A lot of things are happening, and they haven't hit the real impact of that
That's
yet.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Ed, you've lived long enough, I'm gonna ask you this question.
Wait a minute, don't say I live long enough.
You've lived long.
I mean, I know what you
Wait a
meant.
minute. If you had to do it all over again, or if, you know, to have a clean slate, but if you had a choice between the right to vote and the right to equal pay, which one would you choose and why?
Right to vote.
Or equal pay, the right to equal pay. Which one would you choose?
Well, I hope I would never have that choice, but because I'm for both of those. I mean, you follow what I mean. If I had to choose between the two, I would have to say the right to vote. And because I believe with the right to vote, you can eventually, if not immediately, impact equal pay. But just having equal pay and not having the right to vote, that means they can take it away from me anytime they get ready. You know, take away the equal pay if I don't have a right to vote. You know, I mean, that might be a...
But I mean, I'm leaving it as equal pay. Nobody can take it away from me.
Oh, nobody.
They have equal pay, period.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's Karen, you asked me a very tough question.
Well, you know, if
I don't know if I
had to
can.
choose,
Which one
I
would
would
you?
want the right to equal pay. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Look how many years it's been since we've had the right to vote. And still no equal pay. A bigger division, a bigger division, a bigger division. Money is your equalizer.
I agree.
And
Now,
with money, the vote would come.
yeah. Well,
That's my belief.
yeah, I agree with you, but you know, when you say we've had the right to vote for so many years, it's been trampled on many, many times.
Right.
You know, in other words, they're trying to trample on it now, you know, by this redistricting and things of that nature. But also, unfortunately, even though we have the right to vote, we don't vote in the numbers that we need to be voting in. You take a state like Mississippi. Mississippi is almost 50% African American, but I don't think they have any statewide African American. Representation. You know, like Senate, I never have had.
If I had equal pay, I would be happy.
Yeah, I know.
And would I be happy enough to vote?
Right. Well, you know, the problem about, I don't say it's a problem, but also, what about those people who equal pay does not come into play? You know, I'm talking about people, well, like myself, if I wasn't working, I still work. But people who just draw an income like Social Security and this kind of thing. You know, so those people, if you take away their right to vote, see, I'm assuming that we're saying your question is that equal pay without the right to vote. And maybe I'm wrong about anticipating.
Well, I think the money issue is that the equal pay would drive you to vote. You would be able to vote. Your money is so now powerful, collectively or individually, that you would get the right to vote.
Yeah, that's one that I'd have to do a lot of thinking about.
Okay. I've been thinking about that for over 60-some years.
Now, I believe in generational wealth, and I believe that's something we've got to learn how to do, you know.
I think that was the biggest hurt for
Yeah.
historic Jefferson Street.
Hmm.
That was one of the biggest hurts, having I-40 come through.
Right.
Jefferson Street, is that it disrupted that intergenerational
Sure
wealth.
did, sure did. It's, you know, most of the people who lived on Jefferson Street that had homes were
Correct.
buying them or either owned them.
And a lot of them had businesses.
And businesses, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were quite a few businesses that, once they were gone, you know, the kids, they just gone, you know, the money,
Yeah.
but that'd be gone quickly, you know, after you sell something. But that's one that, you know, I hate to even envision. I want to see both, you know, at the same time. But I hope we don't ever get to the point where we have to make that decision. But I agree with you. Money does. Money is power, unfortunately. But you know, what they say yesterday, the board of Tesla or whatever it is, are going.
Elon Musk is
They're going to make him a trillionaire.
dollar parachute.
Yeah, but a trillionaire within the next 10 years. You know what $1 trillion is? That could buy 2 or 3 of these states in the country, you know. I mean, seriously, if you think about our budget, national budget, is how many trillion? $3-4 trillion, somewhere like that? I'm not talking about the national debt now. I know that's 30 million or whatever. But I'm talking about what we spend every year. He has more money, personally, he would have than probably the bottom 25 to 30% of the population.
Well, the good thing about it is that there are other countries, you know, emeritus, that they have a trust set up in the country that's trillions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Not only individually, but collectively.
Right. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with this economy, but if things keep going like they're going, we're in trouble. I'm not in trouble, because I've been used to living poor. You know,
Oh, yeah.
give me a bologna sandwich and some Kool-Aid, I'll be all right.
Still eat bologna.
I still eat bologna sandwich. It's that
Well,
poor
it's-
man's steak.
There you go. Well, it's getting kind of late now, but I do have one other person that I'd like to
I hope it's not
bring
as
to
hard
the
as.
table. It's not, this is the
Karen.
easy one. What do you think that the Jefferson Street Sound Museum is bringing to the community?
Oh, you already know that. You know the answer to that, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Oh, I think it's bringing a great deal to the community. Matter of fact, when I was coming in the door earlier, this car pulled up out there on the other side. It was a white gentleman in a car, and he was taking pictures of this building. You know, he was just people had to blow at him to keep him going. And I said, well, I hope it's not the FBI. But no, he was just interested. You could tell he was just interested in what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think you're making a significant stamp on this community, you know. You and I talked about it before. I wish you could expand it a little bit, you
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
that's something in the future that I think will happen. Maybe we can buy the Elks Club down there and make the whole place the museum, or you know.
Yeah.
That would be great. Then you could have entertainment and all kind of stuff down there.
Yes, sir.
This young man here who is a top trumpet player in the world could perform there. But you know, I think you got a good start
Yeah.
of what's going on. I think people recognize that, and I do whatever I can to try to talk you up.
But being
And,
here is,
being here, well,
Yeah.
I'll come anytime you ask me. And the only thing you ask me for, I might not be able to help you with, is a whole lot of money. I know, Karen.
She asked those
She would ask those questions for us.
So let me ask you one other question, Ed.
All right.
We know that I-40 came through and it was part, you know, the agenda of the federal government in the city of Nashville. So what should the federal government in the city of Nashville commit to amplify and increase development on Jefferson Street?
Well, I think they should do everything that they have the power to do, you know, the money or the resources, but I think it ought to be directed toward improving, not improving, but ensuring that many of the black businesses and others have a part of this community. You know, like I said, I don't want to see them just dump a lot of money out here to put a major store or something that has nothing to do with us, maybe provide a few jobs and that kind of thing. That's not what we need. We need, like you talked about earlier, we need some footprints to foundations to be able to build that generational wealth that we keep talking about. And we're never going to do it if we don't own anything. You know, if everything comes in here is for us and not by us or with us, then nothing's going to, you know, it's not going to happen. So to try to answer your question, yeah, let's include the state in that too, because the state had a part.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell the story about when they first built the interstate. I don't know if it's in the book, or in the chapter where I talk about that. They built a fence, a 10-foot fence, all the way from down where the railroad trestle is, all the way to where Kingdom Cafe is now. And nobody could figure out what's the purpose of this fence. The fence was on the inside of the sidewalk. Sidewalk's out here now, you can still walk up and down Jefferson. But the fence was right against the doors. My mother and them owned the home, that's where we lived. So what they did, they renamed the alley Beasley Street. It's what it's called now. If you go down 26, you look up the sign, it says Beasley Street.
That's right.
And so you're supposed to come in out the back door as your front door to your house. So several of us got together, Reverend Amos and Ms. Magruder and myself and maybe a couple other people. We went, well, everybody was pointing the finger at each other. The feds were saying, well, that's the city's responsibility, and the city was saying that was the state's. So we finally figured out who owned the right-of-way of that fence was the state. So we went down to the Department of Transportation, the state, and had this big fat guy, you know, he probably a political appointee, he had no idea what he was doing. I don't even remember his name. But we said, sir, what's the purpose of this fence being here? Well, what I understand, it keeps the dogs and the cats and the people from walking up on that interstate. I said, sir, the fence is on the inside of the sidewalk. The dogs, the cats, and the people are walking on the sidewalk, which is on the outside. He said, I didn't know that. So anyway, about a week later, they tore the fence down. But the whole purpose, in my mind, of building that fence was to devalue the property behind it, you know, like the property my mother and them owned and all, where they would just give it away. In other words, you know, it ain't worth nothing. So, you know, you give it away, then we tear the fence down and we build what we want to build. I mean, some things to me become very obvious, but they tore it down. And
So I've got one other question to ask you that I think affects historic Jefferson Street. Then that had happened to one of our HBCUs, Tennessee State University. And of course, I'm a campus baby, grew up on TSU. This is nothing new. The state moving funds where they wanted to go to whatever institution. But what do you think as far as Tennessee State University getting the $2.5 billion since COVID?
never happened. And not because it shouldn't happen. It just never happened.
And why is that?
They don't feel like they're obligated to pay that. I don't think the state feels obligated to pay it, even though, you know, they acknowledged that they didn't, well, the federal government came in and audited and found, you know, discovered that they did not pay the money that they need to pay to Tennessee State over that period of time.
But did they say where the funds went to? What institution?
Well, they didn't say. I mean, they gave them to, yeah, I mean, you know, other institutions got some of the money. I don't know if they got all of it. But, you know, unless they go to court
Yeah.
and maybe win a battle there.
The reason it's such a
You'll never have
puzzle is because we have the stadium, the football stadium, there on TSU campus. With that $2.5 billion, it could be brought up to par, and that team can have a wonderful workout room, workout space, locker room. It doesn't make sense for Tennessee State University to have to go and utilize the Titan Stadium.
But see, I was opposed to that from the very beginning.
That's off campus, that's not
They-
even on campus.
And TSU had to pay them. I don't know what they do now.
Yes, they do.
But they had to pay them over $300
And
some
you have to
thousand dollars a
leave,
year.
you have to leave at a certain time, right after the game.
Right. Plus all of the concessions and all don't go to TSU. They go
Correct.
to the Titans. So I never saw the purpose of that, of
At
why
all.
they even made that arrangement. You know, TSU's stadium is not the top of the line, but it's not that bad. I mean, I love to go out there. The only games I go to are the ones they have
In the hole.
in the hole. And I've never been to one down at the stadium. Not that I'm protesting anything. I just like the atmosphere. You know, I was going to those
It's
games back in the '50s. Yeah, I mean, everybody in there you almost knew. You know, and the community was there. On top of it, it wasn't just the students.
Yeah, they
The
were.
community was there.
It was.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And now, you know, I don't care nothing about going down there. What they have, even with the classics and all, they're nowhere near fill that stadium up. You know, what I mean, it might be a third or half,
Yeah.
if that,
20,000.
20,000 or something.
Yeah.
Saying. And you can see 20,000. I think how many you see in the whole? It's at least 15,000. I
Yeah.
think. So I don't know. That's something that. That's where the vote comes into play, Karen. We've got to get rid of this supermajority of people who are controlling everything that's going on in this state. How we do that, the only way we do it is vote. And that's going to take a lot of effort. I looked at the Tennessee when they had the parade, TSU parade,
Yeah.
and I said, you know, if just half of these people went to the poll and voted, I said, think of the difference if just half. You know, you're talking about 30, 40,000 people lined up from here all the way to way down 14th in Jefferson. But anyway, that's something we got to work on.
So I got one other question. I don't think, did you ask? And then why and how did you decide to write your book, A Walk Down Jefferson Street?
You know, and I use this word, I don't know if it's even a word anymore. I had this hankering.
Hankering?
Yeah, it's hankering, the old folk word. Even back when I was a teenager almost, especially when I was about 16 or 17, to really tell the story about Jefferson, because it was such an important part of me and my life that I just say the story needed to be told. When I took this book, when I took the transcript to, yeah, what not? Oh, I published it myself, but who was the editor of the Tennessee? You know what I'm talking about? Siegenthaler.
Yeah.
I took him a copy, and he read it, and he called me and he said, "Ed, this story's got to be told," you know. And I think on the back of my book he says it's got to be told. I felt that way too. First of all, I felt we were going to lose the history if somebody didn't tell it. Second of all, I just felt that it was very important to understand the richness, the things that we talk about here today, the cohesiveness, the caring and sharing of people. I think it's important for anybody, not just in this community, to read and appreciate. I had this lawyer downtown, he bought one of the books, I guess, and read it, and he came to me, he said, "Ed, I did not know all of this." He said, "That's amazing." He said, "Everybody, all you lawyers," he was telling some of his white lawyer friends, "y'all need to read this book, you know, because this tells a story about a community that was really a rich community," and it was. You know, the pride that was in the community was enormous. I mean, you know, people they didn't bow down to nobody. They were proud people. I think they said Frederick Douglass, I believe it was a book that, anyway, They said Frederick Douglass, when he came to Nashville in 1870s and all, he said the people in colored people, he said, in Nashville were some of the proudest people that he ever run into. And I believe that was probably true, even during that era.
Because we had all that we needed. We
Had
didn't
all-
have to ask.
Wasn't gonna ask.
You
You know, I mean, that's the
yeah.
thing. I think that's what made people so proud. They didn't have to go downtown and beg for anything. You know, we had. I spoke in a group out in the Belmead Jewish community about my book. They invited me out there to talk about the book. And one of the ladies, she said, "Mr. Kendell, how did they afford to do the things you're talking about?" I said, "Because we traded with each other." You know, the old saying is that the black community dollar comes through once, and the white community twice, and the Jewish community stays there forever. But I mean, that's just an old saying they have. But in that community, the money did pass around. Even you know, I talked to you earlier about the numbers business that was in the black community.
Yeah.
That money passed around. I mean, you had what they call number runners. They made 20% of every dollar they wrote a ticket on. Say if they wrote a ticket for $1, they'd make 20 cents of that dollar. Many of these number runners, there were many more than people know. I mean, there were several hundred that sent their children to college, you know, on monies they made. And of course, you know, people were saying, well, it was illegal. But you've heard me also say, well, what's the state of Tennessee doing now? Are they illegal? They the same identical lottery that these bookies were doing beforehand.
They made billions of dollars.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know, I forgot what I had a senior moment there. Go ahead.
Why
Well,
you wrote the book?
Hmm.
The reason you wrote
Oh, okay. Let me see if yeah, that was my major reason, trying to preserve the history, and I felt like it was a story that just needed to be told. When I first started to write it, the title was A View from Jefferson Street. And I was talking about a view of Nashville, how people looked at this entire community from Nashville. But then I changed the title to A Walk Down Historic Jefferson Street during, and the subtitle is during an era of segregation, Jim Crow or something like that, segregation, whatever. And no, I said dark clouds and silver linings. And what I meant by that, the dark clouds, of course, were the Jim Crow laws, you know, where you couldn't do this and couldn't do that, couldn't ride on the front of a bus and all that. But the silver linings were the richness of the community that came out of that. And like I talk about the teachers, the education, you know, we had the best of the best, you know. And we wouldn't have had that had we gone to other schools.
Mhm. Well, we're going to end it now with that last remark. And I appreciate you coming in and sitting with us and enlightening us about some of the things that took place here on Jefferson Street.
Well, you know, I can talk about it for another hour
You
or two,
can.
but I'm not going. You know, like I say, my wife put that in the book, said, "Your beloved Jefferson Street." 'Cause she thought I was nuts.
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
You know. But hey, I couldn't have written that book without her. She was an English teacher, and she taught at TSU, and she taught in metro schools for 30-some years. But she edited my book. You know, I can write, but I write like a lawyer, you know, with matter of fact kind of. She made it more interesting in terms of how she described things, you know. She's more poetic about it. And I really appreciate that. I would go to bed, I'd write maybe 2 or 3 pages, and I'd go to bed and I'd get up in the morning and read what I read, and I didn't know what the hell I was reading. But she then edited it and made it sound a lot better and all. So she was a great contributor to that book.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've enjoyed it, and anytime you want me to come and talk, you know I'll do it.
Thank you.
And anything else you want me to do to try to support the program you have here, I'll do that. And if I got any ideas that you can help,
Oh, yeah.
that-
Oh, yeah.
I'm coming to you.
Definitely.
And I ain't gonna ask for no money.
Well, you know that. That
I know
would be
you
the
got
right thing.
I was just kidding.
Okay.
All right.